In just the last hour or so, the president doubling down on his fight against mail-in ballots as his administration asks the Supreme Court to greenlight plans to drastically change mail-in voting ahead of the midterms.
And hopefully there will be no mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt, except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel.
It comes as the Trump administration filed an emergency appeal today, asking the Supreme Court to let him implement this executive order that would give the federal government more power over mail-in ballots submitted by state-run or in state-run elections. Now, remember, a federal judge blocked parts of that proposal last month, shutting down the president's plans to create a federal list of voters, along with other changes. NBC's Garrett Haake at the White House for us. And Garrett, walk us through what this executive order could do and give us a gut check here, right? Do we expect to see any of these changes implemented before the midterms? And we would remind the audience that it's the states that run elections, their own elections, not the federal government.
Yeah, and that's really at the core of this, Tom. Who controls these elections, states or federal governments? This executive order, if implemented, would require states to essentially turn over their voter rolls to the federal government, which would then vet who should be on them and make sure that there aren't any non-citizens listed on these voter rolls. They would then provide this information to the Postal Service, who would only deliver mail-in ballots to those who matched this federal register. A coalition of states, 23 of them, have sued the federal government, saying this is something that should be under our control, that the federal government should have no say in. And so far, at least 2 judges at the district and circuit court level have agreed. But the White House has now asked for the Supreme Court to involve itself here on an emergency basis because, in their view, they need a decision on this by early August if there's any chance of implementing this order by November's elections. There may not be any chance for that. The Supreme Court may indeed side with these 2 lower courts who have already ruled on this for all the reasons we've described, Tom, and for the fact, as you know, as a Coloradan, that there is nothing inherently corrupt about mail-in balloting, and many states, including across the Mountain West, use it almost exclusively. But this has been an issue that the president has hammered on for some time and now trying to force the issue up through the highest court in the country.
Listen, I know you're not an attorney and you don't play one on TV, but this would seem to be just kind of blatantly unconstitutional.
Look, the courts have been pretty much siding with the states in these election cases going back to 2020. State control of elections is kind of a founding principle here. It's laid out in the Constitution. This does, on its face, look like a federal overreach or a federal involvement. But as you say, I am not an attorney and won't make those arguments here on the backside.
Yeah. Okay, Garrett, thank you very much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.